Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump just scored an absolutely massive victory in the Supreme Court, and so right now the radical progressives are totally melting down. You see, for years now, the Democrats have been intentionally flooding the country with as many illegal aliens as humanly possible. In fact, during Biden's 4 years in the White House, the Democrats actually allowed over 20 million illegal aliens to invade our country. But check this out. Joe Biden and the Democrats actually created a mobile smartphone app called the CBP app for the explicit purpose of allowing as many illegal aliens as possible to claim refugee status so that they could get temporary protected legal status inside of our country, totally circumventing our federal immigration laws. And so this was all part of a calculated and deliberate attempt to streamline the process of importing as many third world immigrants into America as possible, with which the Democrats planned on replacing all of us actual American citizens. As you all know, because the Democrats can't actually win free and fair democratic elections anymore, they've just resorted to trying to replace American voters with a never-ending series of third world illegal immigrant invaders, doing every single thing they can to not just import them into the country, but also to protect them once they're here. And so, folks, this is where we get to President Trump's recent massive victory in the Supreme Court. But before we talk about that, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. Yesterday afternoon, the Supreme Court issued a bombshell 7-2 ruling in President Trump's favor, allowing him to revoke the temporary protected status of over 500,000 illegal aliens that were in the country thanks to Joe Biden's CBP app. But not only that, because all of these illegal aliens are registered inside of this smartphone app, President Trump actually has all of their personal identification information as well, meaning that he's going to be able to round all of them up and deport all of them at record pace. And now, the reality is, this Supreme Court decision is just yet another example of the Supreme Court shutting down and overturning one of these radically progressive decisions to come out of our corrupt, radically progressive federal judiciary. In fact, I want you all to take a look at what none other than Stephen Miller had to say about all of that just yesterday afternoon. Let it play.
Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question, respectfully, Pam. You're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying
well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had to win.
You said is it my expectation?
I'm speaking because now you're putting.
You said, is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you
I know
hear
you
a
want
sentence
to
like,
it is a completely fair question. You say judges who rule against the White House.
And I will
go
gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He's the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action.
And so, folks, that right there is why this Supreme Court ruling is so important. What this Supreme Court ruling does, to some degree, is put the radically progressive federal judiciary back in their place and actually allow President Trump to do the job that we all elected him to do. The truth is, this Supreme Court decision is a total shutdown to activist judges who have been working to obstruct President Trump's ongoing effort to put an end to illegal immigration, which means American taxpayers aren't going to have to subsidize the existence of a bunch of people that shouldn't even be here in the country in the first place. A phenomenon, by the way, that the Democrats and the far-left media has been tirelessly defending for years now. In fact, speaking of the far-left media, take a look at this.
Undocumented migrant sent a letter threatening to kill the president, promising to self-deport after the assassination. CNN reporting shows that investigators believe the migrant was set up. It was a victim of a setup. What is the administration going to do now? And this is an undocumented immigrant. I do want to note that, but this was someone who came forward, was a victim of a crime, and now law enforcement believes he was set up. Go ahead.
Well, I want to clarify what you mean, so we're talking about the same thing. Are you saying this immigrant was here illegally?
Yes, but I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means. I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake Social Security number.
That's neither here nor there.
That's
getting away from the question, Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
But when we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
All right,
an illegal alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine. That's another discussion for another day.
I don't know the details of the assassination threat. All I can say, based on what you're telling me, is there's an illegal alien in our country who's making menacing threats. Regardless of the facts or circumstances, we don't want him here. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and I would gladly come back on when I have more information to share with you.
They were set up, just to be clear. But quickly, where is the White House on habeas corpus?
The illegal alien was treated unfairly. Yes, I'm sure the illegal alien was treated very unfairly.
Where is?
So, folks, you can tell the Trump administration is just completely done dealing with all of these far-left, radically progressive antics. Really, with President Trump back in the White House and with Supreme Court rulings coming through like the one that we've been talking about today, we genuinely are back on track to actually make America great again. And so this is what that looks like. The border is secure, illegal aliens are getting mass deported, the Democrats are pretty much imploding right now, and the far-left media is getting totally shut down. The reality is, now that President Trump is back in the White House, the games are over, and all of us Americans are done putting up with all of the far left's never-ending anti-American behavior. So hey, I don't know about all of you, but in my humble opinion, this is what it looks like to finally put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.